This is all of the tech, equipment and kit that I used for a 4,000 kilometer race across Europe. A couple of months ago, I finished via Race Chapter 2 on this bike and with this kit. I finished in 15th place after riding just under 4,000 kilometers from the south of Italy through the Alps, kind of across the Alps a little bit, back across the Alps, and then up to Amerongen in the Netherlands after hitting the North Sea. So a bit of a zigzag across Europe. Although I really wanted to finish in the top 10, I was pretty happy with 15th. And one of the main reasons I felt very happy was that my kit and equipment selection meant that it was a very, they're never comfortable, but it was a pretty comfortable ride. Nothing really went wrong, my body was fine, nothing really broke, and I think that's down to choosing the right components after a lot of trial and error. I'm going to run through everything on the bike, everything in the bags, all of the kit that I took, basically everything that I took with me. I'll go over the bike quite quickly. There is a more detailed video on my channel about this bike because it's very interesting and well worth a watch. I'll start at the front and the top of the bike. I used the Coros Dura as my main computer and I used it probably 95% of the time. I also had a Wahoo Roam just because I have a spare mount on the bars, so I thought I may as well take a spare computer, and I did have to use it a little bit when I couldn't work out how to use the Coros because I didn't read the manual. I mean, absolutely brilliant, that computer. The fact that it charges on the solar panel on its own meant I only had to plug it in twice over 12 days of riding into the wall for about an hour total, which is just crazy. One of the big challenges of this kind of ride is electronics and charging stuff, so taking one thing out of the equation made a big difference. Literally the day before Via, I added an extra spacer block underneath my TT extensions, and that made a world of difference as well. I mean, they're already pretty comfy, but just being slightly more upright, slightly less weight on the elbows and the hands, a little bit less aggressive, just made it a lot more comfortable. And I probably spent the majority of those 4,000 kilometers sat in those TT bars, which is what you want really. It's more comfy, no weight on the hands. I didn't have any hand injury or pain or discomfort in my hands at all across the whole thing, and it's faster because you're a little bit more aero, obviously. I do also have a bell on there. You have to have a bell. I think it's at all of these events, all of the races, you have to have a bell, and I think it's actually law in a lot of the European countries that you have to have a bell and lights. The handlebars were also a pretty late change. I only changed those a few weeks before. I really wanted some drop bars with flare, so I actually put my gravel bars on there, which are 38 at the hoods, that flare out to like 43 at the drops. And again, those are brilliant. The only thing I changed on those bars, I'd quite like to have a flat top. I just find having a flat top on the tops makes it a little bit more comfy when you're climbing, but with plenty of bar tape, it didn't really make that much of a difference. And the amount of different positions you got, I wasn't in the tops very often. I'll come on to the group set a little bit later. The stem, I've got an NV 110 carbon stem that's at -7. Light at the front, I didn't actually use that light. I used a big 6-pack exposure light, which unfortunately, I think it was pretty much the only victim of water ingress because it had a bit of a crack at the back where I've broken it before, so it wasn't really a fault of exposure, but yeah, that died at halfway. But that's why you bring spare lights, which is in that bag there, so I just had to use my spare, which isn't the end of the world. The frame is, of course, Pete Alfano, hand-built, out of steel, in the workshop up in the Midlands somewhere. Carbon Columbus forks that have internal routing, so even though this is a kind of traditional steel frame, the hoses go through the frame, so they go through the headset. There's no gear cables because it's the wheel top wireless. The wheels, I didn't actually use these wheels. I used the previous generation of Strada gravel wheels. These are just slightly wider and bespoke from Strada, but the wheels that I did use were absolutely faultless. They felt really nice to ride, and there wasn't any sign of spokes getting loose or any damage at all at the end. These are exactly the same tyres I used. These are Pirelli P0 Race TLR 35mm, set up tubeless. Again, absolutely faultless. I didn't actually put any sealant in them because I forgot. So I ran about 1,000 kilometers without any sealant, and then the front started to lose air very slowly because there wasn't any sealant in it. So I just dropped it into a shop, they put some sealant in it, and I didn't have to touch them until the end. No punctures, so that's all you can ask for really. A wide tyre on a wide rim feels really nice. I've gone for the older Physique Antares carbon rails. As you'll know, if you've watched a lot of my other videos, I had a lot of problems with saddle sores in the same race last year that actually caused me to DNF. So this was something I really concentrated on. I did a lot of testing on different saddles, but this carbon rail Antares for some reason just doesn't cause me any problems, and I didn't have any saddle discomfort, apart from a little bit of it gets a little bit raw, but after 4,000 kilometers, that's to be expected. On the frame, obviously I've got the 2 bottle cage down here, got the extra bottle cage at the top. I've got the wheel top group set with a Shimano caliper on the front because I thought the wheel top caliper was something wrong, but I ended up changing anyway. But it all uses mineral oil, same brake pads. Group set, absolutely nothing went wrong. We had some torrential rain where I literally had to ride through some floods in some villages, which I didn't really think about until the water was coming up above the bottom bracket and above the rear mech, that I was like, oh, hang on. I'm kind of riding a smaller brand Chinese group set, and if this dies, there's absolutely zero chance I'm getting it repaired anywhere in Italy. But it survived and it worked. I charged it a couple of times and that was it. No problems. The chain set, I've got an Ultegra R8 8100, 8100 I think it is, with a 44 tooth 1x chainring and a 1044 cassette. Gearing, there's always going to be points when you're riding 4,000 kilometers that you really wished you had a smaller gear, but if I had a smaller gear I would have just gone slower. So I think it was kind of the perfect middle ground, and I don't remember spinning out really at all. Once you hit like 35 miles an hour, you don't really want to be pedaling because it's not really that efficient, especially not over this distance. Rear light, I had to use a different rear light because these exposure lights didn't turn up. They'd actually turned up 10 minutes after I left, which was very annoying, but it's all I use now. So that's what I've got on there. I've also got an SN Vitae bottom bracket in there. I mean, it feels like new, to be honest. Again, like I said, I had to ride through floods and it went above the bottom bracket. Like, it's been absolutely thrashed, and it feels like it did when I took it out of the box. On here at the moment, I've got Shimano XBD pedals. I actually use my road pedals and my road shoes on the ride as another last minute change. One, because I have power pedals, so it's nice to have my power, and I like the carbon soles of my road shoes. So that's the bike itself. Moving on to what I put on the bike. As I mentioned, I've got 3 bottles on here. I've got an insulated one. Before the race, I thought heat was going to be the main problem. It turned out to be the opposite, so that was pretty useless. But when it was really hot at the start, it was very nice to have cold water even a few hours after you replaced it. And then I had normally carb mix or some kind of sugary drink in this bottle, and then just water in this one, because if I forget to close it, it leaks a little bit, so I don't want sticky stuff all over the bike. Frame bags, I've gone for the full tail fin frame bag that takes up the whole space of the frame, and the matching top tube bag. These, absolutely incredible. As I've said a few times, it was very, 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 very wet, and rain was a massive problem, and yet nothing in there got wet. Obviously there's lots of important stuff in there that I'll go into in a little bit that I don't want to get wet, and if I got wet, it might have meant the end of the ride. So the fact that I didn't get wet was very good. Tailfin did gift me these because I asked them very nicely, basically begged them for some free bags, because they are the best bags to put on your bike. And then I've got an extra saddle bag at the back as well. This was full of mostly clothes, which again I'll go to in a little bit. Okay, the fun bit. Inside the bags, let's see what we have in here. Obviously it's not, I have unloaded and loaded this again, so hopefully I've put everything in. Batteries, these 2032 watch batteries, basically go in everything on a bike. They go in shifter, heart rate monitor, maybe some other stuff, so that I've always got those in my bag. And I did have to use those a couple of times, so that was useful. Spare rear light and a spare front light. So this is the light that I actually used for the majority of the ride, which is actually meant to be like a helmet, little helmet light. Did the job. And yeah, spare rear light always. So you can have one on and one charging. I took this Psych Plus electric pump. I had to use it a few times just to kind of keep the pressure up on the tyres. Obviously, you're riding for 2 weeks, pressure's just going to naturally seep out of the tyre. So it was nice to have this so I could always just keep it pumped up. And I always knew what pressure they were at, which was very useful. I would have liked to taken a smaller thing of sun cream, but this life jacket stuff was really good. Obviously, it's made for sports. I only really had to use it on the first couple of days, and the last couple of days, skin health, you want to take that pretty seriously. Tyre levers, obviously, and I actually took 3 tubes with me. I didn't use any of them, so I just dragged around 3 tubes around Europe for no reason. But my theory is around taking 3 always, is you can get a double puncture, putting two new ones in, and then you've got 1 spare one if you've got to ride really far to a bike shop to get new tubes. So I'll keep doing that. And eventually one day I'll get a double flat and I'll have to use that spare tube when riding to a bike shop. This slightly odd looking soft pouch, I decanted some chamois butter into. Last year, saddle sores caused a lot of problems. Taking it a lot more seriously this year. So I took one of these full of chamois butter and applied it pretty much daily. There are a few days that I didn't. Definitely made a difference. So this is a plug from Ugreen, obviously European prongs. And this is a fast charging one. This pairs with the battery pack that's in my top tube bag. So this has a USB-C port, a USB-A, and a USB-C cable off it. So it meant that I could plug into one power outlet in a hotel for 3-4 hours, however long I was going to be there, charge something on this, and charge the power bank, and charge something from the power bank, all fast charging, which was huge. I've only ever really used crap electrical stuff before, so being able to charge something to full when I just want to stay in a hotel for a couple of hours made a big difference. I was really, really happy with that. I think that's pretty much all I had in here. I've got a few zip ties as well, that's always useful to have. I had electrical tape in there as well, again, always useful to have, even though I didn't actually use it. And I do have, taped at the top there, I do have a normal pump that's the length of the bag, because I hadn't used this electric pump before, so I wanted a backup. And I think you should probably always take a normal pump. I think I'd probably keep this in there. It's not very intrusive, doesn't take up much space, doesn't weigh very much. On the other side of this bag, I had cables, lots of cables. I had a couple of USB-C cables. I had a cable for the wheel top. I had a cable for the exposure lights. I had a cable for the rear mech. And I had a plastic wallet with the very, very important stuff. So I had insurance documents in there and the passport and 100 euros in cash. Talking about stuff getting wet, obviously this is the most important thing on me, more than my phone, more than anything else. So this getting soaked, all my documents, all my money kind of evaporating in the wet was a bit of a fear, but it didn't happen because the bags are waterproof. Top tube bag. In the top tube bag, I had stuff that I needed to access a little bit more often. So I had toothpaste and a toothbrush that I've cut down just to make it fit in there. I actually forgot my toothpaste, so I had to buy a new one when I was in Italy, and then I just squirted half of it out to save weight. Some squirt lube. This was squirt lube is brilliant, and I use it on all of my chains. But considering how insanely wet the whole thing was, I had to reapply it quite a lot because it kept getting washed off. So I might have gone with some wet lube for that particular event, but yeah, I swear by squirt. Great stuff. This is the power bank. This weighs a ton, this power bank, and it is 20,000 milliamp. Yeah, so this is 20,000 milliamp power bank, 165 watt. So it's fast charging. Again, this has USB-C, USB-A, and a USB-C cable. So could always keep lots of stuff charged. Yeah, this was brilliant. Like I said, with the pairs with the plug, having fast charging on both of these, being able to charge loads of devices by one power outlet was yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, so I've got some life jacket, lip protector, kind of sun balm. I've also got some Vaseline. I don't know what I use the Vaseline for actually, but it's kind of always useful to have, I guess. And in there, I've also got some brake pads. These are the brake pads I actually took off. Oh no, these are new brake pads. So I've got another set of spare brake pads in here as well. I did have to replace one set. I think I had to replace the rear. I didn't actually have to replace the fronts after 4,000 kilometers, so clearly I wasn't braking very often. So those are the bags on the bike. I also had a backpack. Now in this backpack, I had cameras. So I had my Insta360 Ace Pro 2, which is what I recorded the video that's on the channel already, like kind of handheld to talking head. I also had the Insta360 X5, which is the 360 camera, which I didn't actually use that often because I couldn't mount it to the bike in time, and then I had to leave to go to the race. Oh, here's some more electrical tape. I did have the water bladder in here, the 2-litre water bladder, but I never actually filled it up. I just carried it along because these 3 on the bike were enough to ride through Europe. You're never really that remote. You're not that far away from a town ever. Fueling. So like I said, I probably always had carb mix in one of those bottles because I took a lot of Sturka with me. Now, obviously you can't fuel 2 weeks on cycling food. One, because you can't carry that much, and 2, I'd probably shit myself eventually. But I did bring like 6 or 7 caffeine gels and the same amount of 90-gram carb mix sachets. And basically what I use these for is if I was going into a night shift and I planned pretty badly and there weren't any shops that I could go to, I knew I had enough food on me to last the night. And I pretty much used it every time I rode through the night. I used a couple of sachets or a caffeine gel just to get me through the night. And I ended up using my last 2 on the last night. So I planned that pretty well, which I was pretty happy with. I didn't really take anything else in the bag, equipment-wise. I pretty much just used it as a store for food that I picked up. So this was normally full of sandwiches, sausage rolls, crisps, sweets. Right, I think that's everything I had in the bags. Let's look at clothing and the stuff that I wore. So in here was where I put the clothing that I wasn't wearing at the time. I find it's always nice to have something that can kind of squish down in this rear bag because it's a bit of a weird shape. You don't really want to put hard stuff in there because it takes up a lot of room. And I don't like weight on the back too much. So let's take all of this out. Okay, so this is probably where I start making some mistakes, the kit choice. As I said earlier, I was expecting it to be very hot, and it was not very hot. It was very cold and wet, and the weather was very miserable. So I took just a short sleeve kind of summer base layer. I really wish I took my thermal long sleeve instead, my merino wool long sleeve base layer. That would have come in a lot more useful. I had a light rain jacket from Sportful. I had a long sleeve jersey. This isn't like thermal or anything, it's just a normal long sleeve jersey. Yeah, and that was nice. And then I had obviously just a normal short sleeve jersey. I had one pair of shorts. A lot of people kind of take a spare pair. Some people just take one. I always just take one and just wash it whenever I stay in a hotel. And these, very important, came with the cargo pockets. So I always had my phone in my right cargo pocket and I always had my camera in my left cargo pocket because those are the two things I'm probably getting out the most. And yeah, these are fine. No saddle sores, no saddle discomfort or anything. And they had some leg warmers, which I pretty much spent the most of the ride in, these leg warmers. And these are the thermal ones, extra warm, which was lucky. I almost took my thinner ones, which would have been awful. I also had some overshoes, which I used a few times, some really thin overshoes, but just nice to block the wind. I also had some arm warmers, and that was it. That's all I took, which was not enough. So just in Italy, before I got into the Alps, I bought a buff, because I forgot to take my Sportful buff, which was stupid. I also bought a towel because I didn't have enough clothing on me, and I kind of used that as insulation and wrapped it around myself. I also started with an emergency blanket, bivy bag emergency blanket thing, but that died a death halfway, and I replaced it with this sleeping bag, which was a lot more expensive than I thought it was going to be. I bought it in Decathlon. It's like 50 euros, which is crazy. So hopefully I need to get some more use out of this. And this made sleeping in the cold in a bus stop a lot more enjoyable. So I think I'm probably gonna take this on other adventures. So with the clothing, yeah, I kind of messed up there. I definitely should have taken a little bit more. I should have taken a down jacket. I should have taken a thermal base layer. Shoes. I wore the new Physique Vega, which is the super stiff, kind of top of the line road shoe. So this is what the Movistar Pros are using, I guess. I think those are sponsored by Physique. These were a lot whiter when I started, but it's a good sign of getting a lot of life out of these. I really thrashed these. Lots of floods, lots of thunderstorms, lots of mucky European roads. Just before I went to Via, I stopped off at Van Crew for a bit of a shoe fit, because whilst these are very, very comfy and they feel very nice, at Solstice Sprint, which is a 1,000-kilometer race, at about 1,600 kilometers, I started getting hot spots in my right foot, which is not good, because if I'm getting hot spots at 600 kilometers into a 4,000-kilometer race, that's going to be pretty miserable. But the left foot was completely fine. And what we did was we moved the cleat on the right foot back a little bit and put a spacer underneath the cleat because my feet are slightly different shapes. The same width, but slightly different shapes. And that completely got rid of any discomfort. And for the whole 4,000 kilometers, I had absolutely no aches or pains or anything on my feet, which is crazy to me. I think that's the first time I've done a long ride like that and not had any kind of discomfort. Same with the hands. I couldn't believe I had anything with my hands either. On the head, I had the Met Trenta, lots of vents, because I thought the heat was going to be a big problem. In hindsight, I maybe would have taken my Manta, which is the aero one, just because it's a little bit faster, a little bit warmer. But yeah, I mean, it's a helmet. I forgot I was wearing it most of the time, which is what you want from a helmet. I know legally you're not actually allowed to use the earphones in a lot of Europe whilst you're riding, but I think that's a pretty stupid rule. You always get one or two on these ultras, they get caught and they get fined the 200 euros. But I think if there's a 1% chance I get fined 200 euros every time I do an ultra for using earphones, I'll take those odds. I think that's definitely worth it, because listening to music, listening to podcasts makes a big difference. So, I think that's it. That is everything I wore, used, rode on for Via Race Chapter 2, a 4,000 kilometer race across Europe. Compared to my normal setups, very, very little I changed for next time. Take a little bit more clothing, and that's pretty much it. Hopefully this was interesting. If it wasn't interesting, hopefully it was useful. And if it wasn't useful, thanks for watching anyway, I guess. Like and subscribe.